sana kodoe na mataka Bauna numa Nananda tonlasa Mai suvana numati
he was in the finance team, going out doing audits on ships, and he was a bit of should we say a poacher turned gamekeeper.
Oh, okay.
But he got made redundant during COVID, but he's
really?
he still works a couple of days a week for a local council just outside, somewhere around Southampton.
Ah.
I know someone put on the other day they bumped into Dougie Tizard. Well, Dougie's a good mate of his, and they meet up quite regularly.
Where, can I ask, where's Dave this week?
He's in Liverpool.
Ah, Pat's hometown.
Yeah, in fact, he tried to get on this morning on his mobile in the car. He had Pat driving. He sent me a video, which I will include in this recording, but it's no good to you right now. And he couldn't get on. So, yeah, it happens, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Even though Noel could get on from Sydney, Dave couldn't get on from the services.
Well, it's like I was saying, Brendan, people need to reboot their devices, to turn them on and off, and it really helps with getting things to work, you know. Yeah.
It was good to see Noel. His daughter Sarah. Yeah. She's a lovely lady. I was working out in America on my last job for a few days, and I was in Santa Monica, and she was living there. So we managed. Noel told me she was there, and we managed to meet up, and we had a lunch out, you know. And nice. She was doing. She was a croupier for a long time in Las Vegas, like Tinker was.
I noticed she had an Irish accent still.
Yeah, yeah. She looks so much like Tinker.
Yeah, yeah.
Really does. Really does. But she apparently she's coming.
Brendan, as co-anchor, it's your job to say hi to new people.
Sorry about that, Brendan.
Hello, Johnny.
Hi.
Hey, what's this on the job training?
That's only your.
I don't know if your ears were burning today. I was singing your praises, John. We were in. We went round for Sunday lunch with some friends, and the couple there that she's Japanese and he's English. He worked on the ferries for a while. He's a nice chap, but they're both retired. But they got a place in Goa.
Oh yeah. And
I was saying, I said I know somebody else has got a place in Goa. I said he was the star chief baker of the P&O Cruises fleet for many years. I said they all used to be in awe of him. I said when he walked past, I said everybody said all the Goanese assistant cooks would bow at him. And the Japanese goes, really? I said, oh yeah, he was P&O royalty. But I did avoid the word queen.
I don't know if any of you saw that bit on Facebook today about I think it was Ronzi, that was it.
Yeah.
About I think it was leaving Sydney, and something about when it left, it used to wriggle or something or other, the back end. I think somebody had said about the amount of queens on it, and somebody else said, oh, when it left Sydney, it was wriggling or something or other. I said, don't you mean mincing? That's usually the word. Normally said there's more mince in the butcher shop.
Talking about mincing, I remember on the ferries, we had a head waiter who will remain nameless because he's such a nice guy, but it wouldn't be right to mention his name on this forum. But he went in for training to do assistant purser training. He said, look, before we start, he said, we've got to get him to walk butch. You can't walk like that around the ship. That was part of his training. Yeah.
How to walk like a man.
Funny day.
We used to get trained how to mince.
Yeah, but funny
He didn't have
days,
to
funny
do it with
times.
the gay guide on his head, did he?
I remember the first time I actually realised that there was a lot of gay guys on the ship. I was in the crew mess on the Spirit of London, I think it was. Yeah, it was the Spirit of London. And I was watching a football match on the TV because we were standing by in Southampton before we sailed, and there was a TV rigged up in the crew. There was a football match on, and Jimmy McIntyre was sat there, and I didn't know Jimmy from Adam. And I said, "Do you like football? You know, what team do you support?" And he says, "I only watch it for the players' legs."
Then he ended up in prison with Georgie Best.
Oh, so we weren't meant to
That's
that.
another story.
Yeah. But I'll never forget being astounded. Who watches a football match looking at the players' legs? But yeah.
Hello, Bobo.
Hey, Bobo, how are you?
All good. All good. I'm off my bike.
He's not going back to Australia now, I believe.
No, bloody hell. Well, hopefully Dubai and UK will be okay on the safe list. So otherwise, I ain't doing 14 days locked up in a hotel.
Yeah.
So they've reimposed it again, have they, Bobo? They've closed up again, have they?
Well,
Sorry?
Steve posted something this morning on the Aussie Crew Bar saying that they're restricting 14-day hotel things if it's countries of concern.
Yeah.
So I would. So hopefully, because I'm going to Dubai and then from Dubai to Sydney, hopefully that Dubai and UK are going to be on the. But who knows?
Brendan,
I just can't.
Commodore Jameson's coming in, so just tell
Okay,
Bobo to shut up.
No noise.
All right, okay.
Oh, Johnny.
We all have to shut up, though. Watch our P's and Q's.
It's all so quiet.
Welcome, Stan. I'm doing co-anchor, so part of my job is to welcome everyone. So welcome.
I thought you
The
said
crew bar.
crown and anchor then, Brendan.
I don't know if you got that, Stan.
Good evening.
There we go.
Good evening to you.
Evening.
Evening.
How are we all?
Are we all well?
Not so bad. Not so bad. Could
It's a
be better.
mixture. It's a mixture of stories this week where people have been reminiscing a little bit, and they had the Australian crew bar on this morning, and I was asking the guys about how they settled in. Was it some of them jumped ship, some of them made the proper move over, but a lot of seafarers, not just from P&O cruises but from other shipping companies, moved to Australia, and how they found it, their experience of going to a new country, and a mixture of sort of fear but excitement, because it was a young country and still in the 60s and 70s, I suppose.
Mhm.
And they're still there, and they've made
Well,
very successful lives.
I can remember I had very strong ideas about joining the Union Steam of New Zealand at one stage.
Mm.
It seemed to be a very attractive company, and a lot of people that I knew sort of went there. And at the moment, obviously, don't tell my wife, I'm quite glad I didn't, but you know.
Yeah.
I suppose, I mean, that first step off cruise ships into shore life, it was difficult for people. I don't
Ask
know.
me about it, Brendan. Ask me about it.
Well, how was your experience, John?
Too.
So you left the dizzy
it-
heights of being a star on the cruise ships, you know, famous presenter and filmer.
It's a nightmare because if you see the camera behind me in the screenshot,
Yeah.
right. So basically, I left to get married, and we were in Reno, and we had our car burglarized, and I lost all my toys, including my passport, all my identification, everything, right? And so the funny thing is that Mrs. Kling, unlike me, she is the optimist, right? The glass is always full. So we go to the marriage place in San Diego to get the marriage license, and we're expecting people to ask who the heck I am. And Sydney said, don't worry, just tell him it's good. And the lady was so fascinated by my British accent that she gave me the license. I got married. And then I turned myself into the immigration in Reno. I said, here I am. I said, I'm married now. And I had my fiance visa, which is another long story. But the funny thing is, the immigration guy says, well, okay, we'll let you stay, but you can't work for 6 months. So I said, okay, would you mind picking the phone up and calling my wife? She's a school teacher in Carson City, and tell her I can't work for 6 months. And he stamped it right there. So anyway, yeah, so to answer your question, when I entered a foreign country, it was very iffy. So I survived.
Hmm.
Hello, Colin.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Colin.
Are you all right? Everyone okay?
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, indeed.
Good.
We were talking, Colin, about adjusting from cruise life to shore life. And as the vicar said to the actress, how was it for you?
Okay, yes, okay, yeah. I didn't find it too much of a problem. Not really. If I missed anything so much, it was the camaraderie that I missed, not necessarily the working environment. The working environment was okay, always okay, but I think that I was able to adapt very easily and have done in everything I've ever done since I left.
What did you do initially then, Colin, when you left? Did you sort of, oh, it was the pub, wasn't it? Was it the pub?
We did. No, that was a little bit later, but we lived on the Isle of Wight.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Louise and I did.
Yeah.
And when I left, I worked in the working men's club behind the bar. Okay, so I did that for a little while. Then we left the Isle of Wight, and then that's when we went into the pub we had.
Yeah.
The Red Lion, of which everybody will know where it is.
Yes.
When I say Royal Wootton Bassett.
Yes. It was Wootton Bassett when we visited you.
Sorry?
It was Wootton Bassett when we visited you.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Louise is asking me to do something.
So, John, going on to you. What about your when you were left the cruises? What's your story, John? When you left, how many years had you done, and what did you do anything after that, or?
You mean me? Do you?
Yes.
Well,
Royalty.
I did. I think it was just on 39 years altogether.
Oh, okay.
I did take early retirement. I went about 12 months earlier. Well, I was 58 when I actually left, coming up to 59. But I left in November. Previous to that, I'd already bought an apartment in Goa, which was going to be a complex. But between me buying it and them completing it, they decided to turn it into a hotel with rented back rooms. Well, obviously I didn't rent mine back because I was going to be using it. But I had, when they knew I was in catering, they'd got me involved in what they wanted for the kitchen and whatever. And they opened on the day that I sailed on doing my last contract on the Arcadia. And anyway, I did that, and I finished in November, and I had Christmas in the UK and went out to Goa in February. But they opened, as I said, on the day I was sailing on my last contract. I'd helped them do the employing of staff before I'd left, and I couldn't do too much because I wasn't going to be there, like the menu, etc. So I had to rely on the chef that we'd taken to do the menu and whatever. But unfortunately, he was somebody that didn't have the customer's interest at heart, shall we say. And if they wanted something extra, no, we can't do it. So when I went out there, it had been a bit of disaster. and people weren't staying in for their meals. They was all going out. Anyway, the first night there, I was in the kitchen just looking to see what was going on, and somebody came in, wanted a chapati, or not a chapati, a naan or something. And the hands go, oh no, we can't do that. We haven't got a tandoori. So I didn't say anything then. Anyway, when they'd finished service, I went out and sat with the owners. There was two owners, partners they were, for a drink. Anyway, James, the chef, comes over and joins us with a smile on his face. Oh, what did you think? And all the rest of it. I mean, there was only about half a dozen guests there. So I said, well, do you really want to know, James? I said, I was in the kitchen, as you know. I said, somebody wanted a naan, and you said you couldn't do it. I said, in the UK, these people are from the UK. They can go into an Indian restaurant there and get what they want. I said, they come to Goa, to India, and they can't get it. I said, no wonder people are leaving. Well, that didn't go down very well to start with. And anyway, it wasn't worth me doing too much then, because it was near the end of the season. But the following season, I basically took it over and run it for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Redone all the menus. In actual fact, Dave Inge came there once while I was still there. Him and Pat came for a meal, and in actual fact, I got them sorted out with some stores because the ship here was almost short. But I did 5 years there and thoroughly enjoyed it. I did all the buying, the employing, you name it, I was there. They just left it to me, in actual fact. And if they did try to interfere, I told them that if they didn't like what I was doing, then they better get somebody else. That's me. So
this called the third best Marigold Hotel, was it?
No,
it was very good, Colin.
In actual fact, what I did there, they decided to go half board, which was breakfast and dinner. And what they wanted to do was a buffet dinner. I said, no. I said, don't do that. I said, because I said, I know, I've stayed in hotels. I said, if I'm on holiday, I want waiter service. So they said, oh, well, I said, leave it with me. I'll sort something out. So I took the allowance of what we had for breakfast and for dinner, which worked out at about £3. That was to do dinner and breakfast.
Wow.
I couldn't put anything expensive on a breakfast buffet, which is what I did. According to the contract, they were only supposed to have a continental breakfast, and what was actually stipulated was toast, toast, juice, tea or coffee. I said, well, that's not a continental breakfast by any means. Anyway, I took the costing as a whole and worked something out. I did a buffet breakfast with an egg station there, etc. I couldn't put expensive things on the menu. It was more or less a vegetarian breakfast, but it went down very well. Dinner, I worked it on the same principle as P&O. I did a 14-day cycle of menus with 3 starters, 5 main course, and 3 desserts, which changed every day for 14 days. And it all went very well. There was also a la carte menu, and if anybody wanted to eat off the a la carte menu, I knocked so much off their bill to compensate for it. There were some nights there where we had every guest in the hotel actually staying for dinner. And I don't think there's many hotels that can say that that has happened. We used to have entertainment most nights. After the first season, it made money. And from then on, it just went very well. The pool area, all the tables, I had proper tablecloths and linen napkins made. We had little vases of flowers put on the table. It was all done nicely. It was all plastic furniture, so I had the tablecloths, and then I had matching covers made that went over the chairs for the evening.
As you do.
It was all laid up and lit up. The palm trees had the lights going round them, etc. And it really, really looked nice of an evening.
Okay, your time's up, John.
Well, thank you for that, John. It was interesting. I mean, spending 5 years doing something after cruising such as that, it's well, commendable. Well done. I mean, a lot of people transitioned from cruising into shore life quite easily, but a lot struggled. But that's an interesting story. What about you, Mo? You were did you get yours was a short cruise time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was only on the Arcade of 2.5 years. So
You shouldn't be
boy
in
and
the
man.
2.5
Like,
years.
about 4 or 5 months, I think. Yeah, 2.5 years. Yeah, as a bellboy, started at 16, and I left the Arcadia and thought I'd just do a little bit of work locally on the ferries for because I lived in the Dover area. I thought I'll just do a couple of months on there, and then I'll go back deep sea. And of course, that all went to pot when I met the wife, really. So I then spent the next 32 years working on ferries. So, and of course, it was almost like a shore job initially because we were going home every day. So
interesting.
You know, it was although it wasn't a 9 to 5, it was more like a 13.5 day and a 10.5 hour night when we first started. But you know, we were going home every day until we started doing the liveaboard later on, really.
Yeah, I've got a question.
That was a little bit different.
I've got a question for Stan. Stan, so when you retired, did P&O like want you to be part of the office, or you use your knowledge of or did just leave you alone to put you out to pasture?
I could tell you about that very simply. When I retired, our pensions and everything else were geared into the actual time we'd been, blah, blah, blah. They wanted me out the day before I would have got more on my pension. I say no more.
Okay. Oh, really? That was nice of them.
Yeah, well, what more can I say? It was so obvious it wasn't true, you know. If you don't go tomorrow, we're going to have to pay you more. Therefore, you're going tomorrow.
Yeah.
In fairness, they haven't been too bad with you know, cruising and the sort of concessions that go with it. In fact, they've been very good that way. So I'm not complaining over much, but there wasn't too much. We'd love to see you back, you know.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes you hear about people when they finish their careers or they're retiring or approaching it. Companies do things that sometimes they appear a bit paltry in the whole scheme of things, and sometimes you think they could have gone that extra mile. But then again, on the other side, you hear of companies where they have treated people very, very well, and they've seen them off, you know, with a wave and a pat on the back. So, Fruity, what about you? How was your transition?
Well, I left in November '86. I was on Sea Princess, and it was at the time when Sea Princess was about to go over to the Princess Cruises fleet. And because I was the incumbent on the Sea Princess, I was the first one to be offered the severance package, which I didn't have to take. John King flew out to San Juan to interview us and tell us what the deal was. And of course, you all know, you know, certainly Pete and Steve, it was at the time when the change was about to come, when all the NUS staff were going to go on the Princess fleet. I could have stayed, but I would have had to have gone to Canberra. And out of the four fruit machine ops, 3 would have been retained, with 2 on board and 1 on leave. So just doing a rotation thing. And I went into the office, and I can't remember who I saw now. Might have been Peter Motion, Medleycott, someone. And I said, well, if I decide to stay and go to Canberra, and you decide to withdraw Canberra, do I get a severance package? And they couldn't answer that to the affirmative, so I decided to leave. So that was mid-November '86. So I sat at home for about 3 months doing nothing, and my mother said to me, go and find a job, for Christ's sake. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'd written to some fruit machine companies. Technology had changed a lot, and I wasn't absolutely confident that I would be able to fit back into that. And I took a job as an assistant caretaker in a school in Basingstoke. It was a community school, so we were open from like 7 in the morning till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So I went there for 3.5 years. Now, it was the most boring job in the world, but it paid all right. But there was going to be no promotion in it. You know, if I wanted to become a caretaker, I'd have to go and live in the house on the site and all that, and I didn't want to do that. And I got myself a job as a cleaning manager, because part of the caretaking role was looking after cleaning. And I got a job with a cleaning company as a manager at Sainsbury's distribution depot in Basingstoke. And I stayed with that company for about 6.5 years, and then I moved on. And I just stayed in the cleaning facilities management business. You know, not just doing cleaning. Some contracts we looked after a multitude of soft services, you know, pest control, waste. It was, and I ended up as the national account manager on the Vodafone contract.
Okay.
I thought that.
And then in 2012, I was about 15, 16 months away from being 65. Pensions had kicked in, and I just decided to leave. So I took early retirement, so to speak. But I was still playing a lot of golf, and I ended up working behind the bar at the golf club a couple of afternoons a week. And I did that. I got my state pension, and then when the greedy government wanted basic rate tax on everything, I thought, right, enough's enough. And then I've spent the time going on backwards and forwards to Australia and New Zealand and Spain and having a good time.
Not bad, not bad. What about the golf club? Did it have a fruit machine in it? Did you install one?
One of these installed one in the locker room.
I didn't have a key to it.
Had a key to it.
How about you, Steve? Stevie Walker.
Myself,
You should ask Barbo, because he has an interesting story. Don't you, Barbo?
Okay, I was going to go to Steve.
No,
So
just Steve
Barbo-
first.
Okay.
Just Steve.
where are we going?
Did you see that, Steve? He's trying to, you know.
I know you're the host, and he's jumping in. It's not
Yeah,
on.
I know. We'll come to Bob Owen just after Steve. Then we got Pete.
Okay.
Now, for myself, well, I finished with the Princess Cruises P&O in '96 when they gave us the redundancy, and it worked out right for me, actually. I just got married in the February. The wife was pregnant. I'd flown out to Sydney for my last trip, and I finished, I think, June or July, was it? June, July. And then that was me finished then. Flew home. Wife had the baby. I messed around for a little bit. I went on the ferries for a while. I worked on Sea Link ferries out of Holyhead.
Hi, Stephen.
Good morning.
I worked on Sea Link
Morning.
ferries out of Holyhead. I say I joined that Sea Link ferry. 24 hours on, 48 hours off. And I'd only been there a couple of days, and the chief steward was asking me, where have you come from? What have you been doing? I said, well, I was a barman on the Princess Cruises. Well, I came back the next trip, and I was behind the bar, straight behind the bar. The ferry. So I stayed there for a while till about 1990. I finished in 1990. I then started my own business. I started my own business. I was supplying hotel catering establishments with all the cleaning stuff, you know, all the stuff for cleaning the kitchens and etc., etc. But it didn't succeed because I was competing against some big guys, and they really pushed me out of the business, like, you know what I mean. They didn't like me being there, and they made sure I didn't get very far. So I ended up working for an insurance company, Royal London Insurance, as a financial advisor, which I did for 15 years, something like that, 15 years. And they made me redundant. We got made redundant again from there. And then I ended up working for the DWP as a employment advisor. the DWP. That's where I was until I retired, basically. Took all my pensions and I retired early. I finished at 62, was it 63?
You had a great insight into the pension scene then, Steve, at the right time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
he gave me some great advice, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, Steve's our pension expert, although he does charge a reasonable rate.
I haven't been paid by John yet.
There you have.
Still waiting for that payment.
Did you get a beer out of it, Steve?
No, I didn't even get a beer out of it.
Oh, Johnny.
Oh dear.
I tried.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Steve. And Bobo, what's your story of transition? Sorry, Mandy and Ollie, you'll come in, and Stephen, you come in. We're talking about the transition from ship to shore and your stories. So we're now on to Bobo. We'll come to you.
Yeah. Well, I left in the sea in 1978, and like most guys, I had a romance. I had a girlfriend that I met on the Oriana, and I left Oriana, spent some time with her in Sydney. At the time, though, it was a bit complicated because she was actually engaged to somebody else at the time.
It could be a problem.
And, anyway, it got a bit complicated. I went back to the UK, and I was standing by, and I got this job on the Sun Princess for a month. I always remember it, 1 month in the Starlight Lounge. And what actually happened when I was on there, this girl in Sydney messaged me and said, when are you finishing? And I was coming off, I think, in maybe June or July or something like that. And she telegrammed me and said, a week before I got off Sun, she said, I'm coming to England. I've booked my flight. I've ditched the guy in Sydney. I said, oh, that's really nice. And at the time, okay, I had a fling with her, and there was some sort of spark there. But you wouldn't believe what happened when I was in England. Within 3 days, I proposed to her. And you know where I proposed to her? It's very romantic. In the Seamen's Mission in Southampton. Anyway, the marriage.
Were you there, Fruity?
Right. The marriage didn't go. So what happened was, I literally got married in England, in Warwick, at the registry office. Never met her parents. Imagine this, never met her parents. She told her parents she was just going to England on holiday. Nothing about me. And so we wrote a letter to her parents. I didn't. She wrote it. I don't know what she actually said, but she said that I got married. So I actually, 6 weeks later, I flew to Sydney, and there's me landing on the doorstep, meeting the new in-laws, and here's me, never met them before. So anyway, it was quite a bit of a transition, and in the end, it took me a while to get used to being in Sydney, because, like everyone, when you finish the ships, it's a big thing. And then I think for the first 12 months, I got a job in an insurance company, and I thought that I might want to get out of hospitality. Anyway, in the end, I went back to it. I ended up for 6 years being bar manager at Rosehill and Canterbury Racecourse. And then after that, for 20 odd years, I was operations manager at Sydney University, looking after special events. And then after that, for the last 15 years, I've been working on Sydney Harbour as a cruise commentator and a whale watching guide on Sydney Harbour. And that's my story. So the marriage, by the way, did last 36 years. So,
well done. Well done.
But she took me
we've got a whale expert and we've got a pensions expert. Okay.
Yeah. So, there you go.
It's Pete now. Pete, you're up.
Right.
Right.
Well, after the main voyage of the CP, which was what, 87, Dave?
The maiden voyage? No, 79.
Sorry, 79. Yeah, you're right. I went to the West Coast until the end of the contract with P&O and Princess Cruises, and by that time I'd been married to Jilly, who I met on the IP. We were then separated at the time, and I'd also met another young lady called Helen, who we seemed to be hitting it off pretty well. So when the contract finished, we both decided to leave and come back to England. So finding a job wasn't difficult because of our all of our natural affiliation to alcohol tends to lead you into jobs that dealt with that product. So we set ourselves up as a team with Bass Charrington, just doing the reliefs for tenants around pubs in the south of England. And then that sort of was okay for a couple of years, but then we drifted apart, and I thought, right, let's completely have try something new. Well, ever since I was a kid, I was mad on sports. So I saw this college course advertised at Croydon College for sports journalism. So I was about, well, I must have been by then 40. So you can imagine myself sitting there with 18, 20-year-olds, but I was the oldest student they had at that time. Got my necessary qualifications and got the work experience job at the BBC, which made me then the oldest work experience person at the BBC. Did that for a year as a freelancer, and they offered me a job. And really, the rest is history. After that, I progressed through several different levels of sports journalism until I became the editor at BBC London.
Yeah, well.
And I was there for 27 years until September the 2nd this year. We're at the ripe old age of 70.
Good man.
I retired, and they said, look, you know, it's about time you should think about going. And I think it was mainly because my team then was consisted of, when I first joined 40 odd, most of the guys and girls in the office were in their 30s, coming up to their 40s. So it's quite a good balance. But by the time you're 70, most of the people in the office are about 25. And of course, the technology was advancing so quickly, it was difficult to keep up with them. Not with the technology, with the way the kids operated. So, you know, I had a decent pension. I had a pension from P&O. All of a sudden, the government pension had started to appear as well. So,
you're good for a beer.
It was a no. Sorry,
you're good for a beer.
It was a no-brainer, really.
So you could say, not including Commodore Jameson, who reached the pinnacle of as far as he could go, that you're the most successful person from the ranks, Mr. Stevens.
Well, it all depends how you look at it.
That depends what way you look at it, Johnny. You know.
Well, I'm just saying it as it is, Brendan. Like I was a bus driver. Colin's a bus driver.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Very important jobs, very important roles.
Yeah. Exactly. I couldn't have done my job. I couldn't have done my job without bus drivers.
Something I wanted to add was that one of the things I wanted to do was get out of hospitality because it was driving me nuts. It was absolutely driving me nuts in the end. I ended up I managed the Masonic Hall in Swindon for 10 years, and it was absolutely driving me nuts. Every night of the week there was a lodge meeting or whatever they do, if you know about that sort of thing, and I just had to get out of it. And I was in the car one day, and I saw a sign. I went for taxi driving for a year as well before that, and I was driving in the taxi, and I saw the sign on the back of a bus: you can earn XYZ driving this bus. And that's what I did. I just applied, and I spent my last 15 years working as a bus driver, and I loved it. I thought it was a brilliant job, absolutely wonderful. But I couldn't stand the hospitality working anymore.
Okay. We've got to move on and try and get some more people on their stories.
Yeah,
so we'll go to Mandy. Mandy, we're doing the transition story from ship to shore. It doesn't have to be long, but you know, how did you find it, and did you do things that you never thought you'd do?
Oh, well, certainly now.
A good way.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so after 86, the changeover, I stayed on as PSI in the bars. I went through pretty horrible time on board. I hated it. Loved the first 7 years at sea, hated the second 7 years at sea. I only stayed for 2-3 years, and then I went back to P&O on the Canberra, which totally finished me off in 93. I started having panic attacks on board, and I just didn't want to be there anymore. So anyway, I got off. I went back to college, did a degree in photography, and that kept me going as a freelance for a few years after that, as I started looking after my mum, who was then in her 80s. So that went on for a few years. And let's see, fast forward to 2002, when I found my first boyfriend, who is now my husband, in Australia. And that's when the long distance relationship started, and I was traveling backwards and forwards to Australia, and he was coming over here. We eventually got married in 2005 on the island of Aitutaki in the South Pacific.
Oh, lovely.
And yeah, on the beach, very lovely. I'd always dreamt of a beach wedding, but hey, eventually. So then I was still not a resident there at that point. I was still looking after my mum until she passed away in 2006. Then I moved over permanently, retrained as a phlebotomist in a busy medical centre, and then we decided to come back 3 years ago, and here we are. And I got a job as a study worker working on this COVID infection survey for the ONS. And
good work.
And can you believe it? I've got a bloody interview tomorrow because my manager's put me forward for training manager's job.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm still climbing a bloody ladder that I didn't want to climb. I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing, driving around the countryside, visiting households, getting blood and swabs. But hey ho, we'll see what happens tomorrow. So yeah, we'll see. And that's it.
Well, good luck on that, Mandy. And your wedding sounded fantastic. What a place to get married. Similar to Bobo's, really, was it?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, do you know what? We invited out all the family, friends, everybody. Nobody turned up. So that was great. Yeah. Brendan? It was marvellous. Yeah. So
the anchorman's turned up.
He's on tour.
Thank you, Mandy.
That's all right. You're welcome. Is Mr. Inge on tour, or is he blooding?
Yes, he is.
Or
yes,
what's
he
he doing?
Yeah. Hello.
Hello,
everybody. Good to see. I'm on my phone, obviously, because I'm on tour up in Liverpool, very near Stevie Walker. Hello, Stevie.
Hello, Davey. Happy Steve. Happy Steve.
And Brendan, thank you very much for doing again a great coverage.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
There he is. There's Brendan. This is my sister-in-law.
Hi.
Hello, sister-in-law.
There she is. There's Jan. We would have been in the crew bar in the garage where they've got a wonderful bar set up, but there's no Wi-Fi signal in there, so I've come into the house. But it's wonderful. And Bobo, good to see you, Bobo. Good boy. And look, there's John Supertart. There's Supertart.
Hi, John.
He's pretending he's back out in Goa.
I wish.
Looking good.
David.
Who else is? Morris. And Donuts. And Pete. Bear with me. I'm on the phone, so I have to keep flicking it. Donut. How are the fish in the tank? Is he frozen?
Colin? No, he's not frozen. He's just sat very quietly and very still.
I've lost the screen.
Within 2 minutes, he's taken over.
I've lost the screen completely.
I think he was talking about Ollie.
Well done, Pete. And
lost
also,
the screen completely.
Bloody hell. No, this is Stephen down in Australia. Stevie, give a wave, Steve. There he is. Yeah. And Mandy.
Got Charlie in Bermuda.
Where is it, Charlie? I'm flicking over another page. Hello, Charlie. Charlie's in Bermuda. And look, and there's Taffy all the way from Wales. There he is.
Back again.
Hey, now look, going back to Mandy, just to send obviously Jeannie Lawrence.
Yes.
I saw her on Tuesday or Wednesday, and she's very sorry she can't come up to London next week.
Oh, Jeannie
No,
Lawrence.
she does, but she sends her love and best wishes to all of you. Oh, but that's Ollie. There's Ollie. Ollie, give a wave, Ollie. There's Ollie. Ollie's down near Brighton. Near Brighton. Yeah. And Pete's in London. Pete's
How about me, Dave?
Yeah. Pete was with me at the Three Greyhounds the other week.
Oh, it's your fault then, is it?
Hello, David.
Dave, you better mention John, Dave. Dave, you better mention John.
Don't forget Johnny.
Hello, David.
Right, I'm just doing another flick round.
You can't even hear me.
Fruity. There's Fruity. Dave, we drove past Overton on our way up the A34.
Well, you should have stopped.
Yeah, well, we would have, but we'd have got here even later. But no, we've done well. And Steve is not far from us, obviously.
All right.
He's Ashton in Makerfield.
All right, okay.
Yeah. So that's it. Right. So
That's it.
Dave,
you're all good.
Dave,
Signal.
Dave, you've already upset John now. You realise that, don't you?
What? No. Hang on. We said no, Johnny. Where's Johnny? Oh, blimey.
Right.
John. John. I did already say you were in Seattle before it started. There's Johnny.
Hi, Johnny.
Hello there. Hi. I must say, Dave.
Dave, can you hear a bollocking coming?
I must say, Dave, that you can be very happy that I'm going to get a big bargain today because I was rude to Hilda.
No.
Yeah, I was, and I do apologise to everyone, the whole wide world, for being rude to John Herbert Supertart.
I never noticed it.
Well, I kind of cut you off after 10 minutes.
I was just finished anyway, so that's probably why I didn't notice it.
So I do apologise, and I'm sure I'll get bollocked by Stevie Walker and Foodie, but that's okay.
Anyway, you saying that, I did mention Dave Inge. We was talking about the hotel in Goa when you and Pat came there.
Oh yes, because Pat and I were out on the ship and we met up with John. I'm pointing at you, John. You're on my phone at the moment in Goa. And we went over there, and John was really, really helpful because the ship, the Hebridean Spirit, we needed lots of fresh veg and fruit, didn't we?
That's right, yeah.
And well, he was getting all his team together, getting all the stores to give to us to take back to the ship. We were being shown around the lovely complex where John was. Are you still there, John? Is that you still there?
I've got another apartment now. About 20 minutes away from there. In actual fact, I sold that one.
Okay, well, it was a beautiful place. We were treated for lunch and the usual thing from John. It was wonderful. And then all these boys were coming through with all these boxes and cases of veg and fruit and everything else. And I don't know, some of you will know him, Kenny Naylor. Do you remember Kenny Naylor on the Canberra?
The plumber. Kenny the plumber.
Anyone know Kenny?
Ken Naylor the plumber.
No, Ken Naylor the
second
chef.
Oh no, different one.
Well, maybe the same.
Well, but we got all the gear, and then at the end of the social with John, we all went in the Pat, myself, and John, and all the gear, all the supplies. We all went back in the taxi back to the ship, and obviously it was another day saved. You know, brilliant. But Brendan,
I'm going to have to cut in here, guys, and just say that I need to cut out now. So it's good to see everybody. But
okay, Connie, thanks for sharing your stories.
That's okay. No, thank you. Thanks for asking. you take care, everybody, and we'll see you before Christmas. All right.
Okay,
Cheers, Colin.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, Colin.
You can do the
Cheers.
rest next week, Brendan, if you like.
Yeah. What we were doing, Dave, was we started up a sort of round the sort of crew bar about how people transitioned from ships to shore and how their career went from there. That's some really interesting stories. Bobo's marriage proposal was one of the most romantic bits I've ever heard. I knew that guy was classy.
Well, I'll look forward to seeing the recording, which I know. Obviously, and going back to Fruity, where's Fruity? Fruity, I know it's been acknowledged before, but with your bits that you put in, really do add to it, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow when we get the recording through. Having you liaising with Colonel and obviously our the CBD. Well done, crew bar director Stevie. Give us a wave again. Yeah.
In actual fact, Dave, listen. I've had to issue a bit of a warning today. Dave, I've had to issue a bit of a warning today.
Really?
As your standing anchorman was late turning to this morning.
Yeah.
Only just.
I got my times all mixed up, unfortunately.
It's only an hour late.
I was scoffing a bacon sandwich when I should have been on set.
Hey, now, Brendan, just asking about that from the Australian one. Did obviously Macca and Debbie were they in with Steve?
Steve was definitely there, obviously, but Macca was in a car, if I remember.
He was in his limousine. And while I got you, I want to congratulate Stephen Watts for Aston Villa, and I want you to tell Pat, because I know that the person she'd love to have connected to, besides you, Dave, is Stephen Gerrard. I bet she loves him dearly, and congratulate her for that.
Because Steve, my Pat speaks the same lingo as Gerrard.
Yeah,
fluently. Yeah.
What was the result, Stephen?
2-1.
2-1.
Doing well.
Excellent.
Game.
3 wins.
Game.
It should have been
3 wins out of 4.
Should have been 3-1.
Should have been 3-1.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well done. And what about, is Blackpool Bob in tonight?
No.
No.
No. I know why, because obviously it was a bit of a.
They got a tank in.
And Charlie from Bermuda. Charlie, how are you feeling? All good? Is the weather good out there with you this week?
Very nice, yeah. Sun shining.
I'll be in the Bahamas next week.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's good because he's in the Bermuda.
You're about
Charlie lives in
miles
Bermuda.
away.
No, it's close. It's close enough.
It's only that far away.
Begins with a B.
In the scheme of things, it's close.
Guess what? Ollie's going to be near Bognor next week.
All right.
Is that right, Ollie?
Yes, mate. Yeah, it's Bognor. Yeah, but my limit, that is.
Yeah. Ollie, are you going to be able to go up to London next week for the gathering?
No, I won't be going up to London next week. Are you going up,
David? Say that again.
Are you going up, David?
No, we'll still be up here,
Sure.
just outside Liverpool.
Yeah. No, I won't be able to make London next week.
I think it's just Mandy and myself that'll be out of this crew that are going up. Dave.
I mean,
It's not just me and Mandy.
Don't start the rumours now.
Will you be the official cameraman next week?
It's beginning to look that way.
Yeah, the only one.
We need Taffy's tale of what happened to him when he left the sea.
Yeah, we've got a few. We've got Ollie, we've got Charles, we've got Stephen, and we've got Taffy to do. Okay. And of course, there's Dave the anchorman.
Go ahead, guys.
Well, shall we start with Charles? Charles, what we were doing was asking everyone after their time at sea what they did, where they moved to, and how did they find the transition from life at sea to shore, and you know, in a short sort of succinct way, explain how your rest of your life went.
Right. I finished on the Arcadia. It was 77 or around that time, and went back to England, and just bided my time there until I got a job abroad. I didn't particularly like the cold weather by then. I'd got, you know, used to the warm weather, and applied for a few jobs around the world, and Bermuda was the one that came up. So I came here basically for a year or two, and been here for 40 odd years. Worked as a store manager, and I was a butcher in the hotel when I first got there, and then transitioned into the supermarkets as a store manager and worked my way through that system to a salesman, liquor salesman in the end for Heineken and Smirnoff and stuff like that. And I finished up with doing that after 20 years and retired when I was 70, basically.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, no, thanks for that. And so now it's just a life of leisure.
Basically, yes. Yeah, COVID leisure.
COVID leisure. Well, thanks for sharing your story, Charles. So we've got Ollie, Stephen, and Taffy. So we'll do them in the order that they appeared on the crew bar. So, Ollie, I think a lot of us know your story, but it'd be nice to share with everyone from transition from cruises to the Oiler Armchair.
Well, I did a bit of a tour around on the cruise ships, and I ended up on the maiden voyage of the Royal, and that was 84. And after that, I left and basically went on the ferries, and I stayed there till I got the sack in 2015. That's about it.
And so you met a lot of your old colleagues on the ferries, of course.
Well, Colin was on there, JR was on there. You know, there's a few of us. Dave was on there. Yeah. So yeah, we met a few of the old colleagues on there, and it was good. Then Colin left, and JR left as well. So I just carried on with the ferries. So that's about it.
So that combined sea time totaled what, Ollie?
44 years, near enough to the day. I went in.
Wow.
I went in the first of in 71, the 6th of December, and I got the sack on the 15th of December 2015. It's 44 years.
Ollie, can you
44 years, near enough to the day.
Ollie, can you tell us why you got the sack?
Yeah, I was on board, and basically you're not allowed to join a ship with alcohol in your system. And I had alcohol in my system when I joined. They breathalyzed me, and that was it. But
is that the first time you were ever breathalyzed, Ollie?
Yeah, I was breathalyzed on there.
I think the clue was Ollie had a puddle of beer at the back of his throat, and they said, "Have you been drinking?"
The question to Ollie was that the first time that they ever breathalyzed you?
Yeah, it's the first time, but they had it on the ship for a long. All P&O had it on.
Well, my point is, you got away with it for 44 years.
No, hold on, see, I only started drinking when I went up to Hull. I never drank before then.
That's a bloody lie. We flew home from San Juan.
There's a long one, that one.
You got me drunk.
But I'll tell you, at the end of the day, it was the best thing ever happened to me. Because I hated it up in Hull. I really hated it. But yeah.
Old club now. He's trying to swim the channel now, aren't you, Ollie?
So now you're swimming in the English Channel.
Yeah, I'm trying to swim across the channel. You might see me from Dover, Brendan, one of these days.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, it won't, because I'm not going to do that much.
Thanks, Ollie. Stephen, I know you talked
trying to get out.
Well, I'm trying to squeeze the last few in before we go. Stephen, you were obviously in Australia. I asked you a similar question this morning, but your transition from jumping ship to your life in Australia, that would be a bit of an interesting few minutes to share with everyone if you want to.
It was. So, yeah. So I jumped when I was in 78 off of Arcadia, and I jumped on June 30 and I married on July 6th. So that kept me in Australia because my wife then claimed me as the breadwinner, and I didn't have a job, but that's the way it went. I worked in bars and clubs and pubs and bottle shops and stuff like that for a few years. All hospitality. Went into retail liquor, retail wine, with a big supermarket chain. And then I went to a direct marketing company, a wine direct marketing company, a wine club, and worked there through into a general manager for till 10 years, 2000. 2000, the Olympics were in Sydney, so I threw in my job and had the time off for the Olympics. Had 3 kids in the meantime, and so we all enjoyed the Olympics together. And then I started my own business in 2001, and as a wine business, a wine club, with the sales and marketing in Sydney, and we had a warehouse in the Barossa Valley. And did that for 14 years and sold the business in 2014. Sort of semi-retired type of thing, or sort of had time off, 6 months, 8 months, and thinking that, you know, I didn't want to do much else, but I got a bit bored and then started mowing a few lawns, which is a totally different sort of situation for me. But yeah, started, and now I've got a little bit of a business with my son who works with us, or I work with him more than he works with me. But yeah, we've got a lawn mowing sort of gardening business just around local area in Sydney.
Nice. Oh, that's a great story. Great story.
Have you got an Australian passport now? Have you?
Yeah, Australian and British. Yeah.
Oh, you've got a British as well.
Yeah. When I jumped, I had obviously a British passport. When we got married, I applied for permanent residency. So I had permanent residency for a while, and then in 1987, I applied for citizenship, and that was the bicentenary. So I got my citizenship granted then. Yeah, so I have dual passport, and my kids have the same. My kids have British and Australian passports. Both of my girls came to England when they were 18 and worked in England for a few years as well before they've come back home.
Yes, I am, but I'm waiting for someone to finish.
So the allegiance for the Ashes, Stephen.
Yeah, I've got to. I lean your side. I lean the Birth side. Yes. There's not many things, only football and cricket, but yeah, I'll be there in the Sydney Test, waving my sandpaper.
Good on you.
I'll go on.
Thanks for sharing that, Stephen.
Thanks.
Good on.
Well, we've just got
Brendan.
Sorry, Dave.
Can I apologise, please? Please excuse me. I've just got to leave the crew bar now, but I want to say goodbye to everybody before you're all there, and carry on enjoying it. And I'll look forward to seeing tomorrow's recording. But sorry to have to disembark.
That's okay. And
have you fell off your stool?
Yeah.
The stool is now being vacated.
And I'll just say that next week Dave
is a signal with the door open.
I must say that next week Dave is completely in charge, and I'm gone. Isn't that right, Dave?
Cheers then. Bye for now. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, Dave.
You missed that, John.
Yes, okay.
So Alan, I don't know if you want to share your transition from cruises to ferries and your story, or.
Well, mine's pretty boring, but it's very short. So
it's not boring.
Well, it was when I got to Dover. I had a great final 4 years on the PP, and as you mentioned, Jeannie Lawrence, one of my favourite photographs from the PP, from my first sailing on the PP, was I was on a beach and I had Jeannie Lawrence in one arm and a lovely girl she was, and I can't remember her name, on the other arm. It's one of my favourite photographs. Well, she's been mentioned. I'm going to send the photograph to you, Colonel.
Yeah, thanks, Taff.
And but I had 4 years on the PP, and the last 2 years was under PSI, and I'd had enough, and I went home, and within a week I'd started looking for work, and I was on my third interview with a nightclub chain called Cinderella Rockefellers, and it looked like I was going to get the job, but I chickened out. And you won't believe this, but Jilly Stevens phoned me. Well, we'll say Jilly Stevens because that's all I know her as.
But she's known as Jilly Lynch now.
Jilly Lynch, yeah, that's it. The brain
blimey.
and
You got it, Mo?
Yeah, I remember Jilly.
Sorry, Alan.
Peter, you remember Jilly? Right. So I phoned up and I got an interview down at Dover, and I waltzed in really because the guy knew me from my early days at sea. And I spent 20 years down at Dover, just long enough. Then I had a major stroke and I had to finish. But I was down there just long enough to pick up my free ferry crossings for life. And
Lucky bugger. That's why he travels all over the bloody world with his band.
And I couldn't believe it when Brendan told me, because Brendan was he was a big cheese down there, Brendan. You was
I wasn't a big cheese.
No, you were up in the office and you always had that lovely suit on up in the office, and I thought, oh, blimey, this boy's done well. I got my free ferry ticket for life to go back and forth. I don't know if you want to finish the story off, Brendan.
Well, when you at P&O Ferries, after you've done 15 years service or more, and you're over 50, you qualified for life concessionary ferry travel. So I finished at the ferries in Dover I'd got 25 years in, and I walked up to the office to pick up my concessionary travel, and they said, sorry, we can't give it to you because you're 49 years and 7 months, and you don't qualify, you've got to be 50. So I think it was Stan Jameson. Stan Jameson said earlier about how companies sometimes can not do the dirty on you, but leave you slightly disappointed when you leave. And P&O were very, very good to me, but that was a slight disappointment. So thank you for sharing that for us, Alan.
Who was it that did the dirty then, Brendan?
Did the dirty?
Yeah.
Oh, it was Peter Ambrose, the personnel manager.
Peter?
He called myself, and there's another guy, Jeff
apologetic when he told you.
And there was, Pete would have met him, and Ollie would have met Jeff Varian last week on the O2 climb. He was a colleague. He was a purser officer as well down on the ferries in Dover, and he was 40. He had 25 years in. He was 49 years and 9 months. Oh. And they still wouldn't give him a concessionary ticket. So there you go. Rules are rules, I suppose.
I've run out of power. If I go off, I'll see you all next week. I've run out of power.
Okay,
all right, Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
Well, I think we're coming to the end, aren't we? Got the traffic lights up.
Yeah, we go. Thank you very much, Brendan. Thank you very much for doing that job today. Appreciate it.
Brendan, we just got a quick message from Gizzy. I'm able to make tonight's bar on the train home from Birmingham.
Birmingham.
Say hello to everyone.
How did they get on today, Leicester?
They lost.
They lost. Lost to Aston Villa.
Ooh, that's a hurtful one, a painful one.
Avoiding Steve.
Anyway, guys. Have a good time on Tuesday, Mandy.
Mandy.
Oh,
Mandy.
Yes. Pete.
Mandy. Did you get the message from Lynn about where to meet by the Christmas tree and the Punch pub?
Is it the Punch and Judy pub?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, the Punch
okay.
and Judy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll be there. Not sure what time. I've got an old friend to meet before I meet you guys. Just a brief meeting, but I'll be there.
Yeah, I think we're getting there for sort of 12 o'clock-ish.
Yeah, no problem. My train gets in at 30. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your stories. All very, very interesting, and some real intriguing stories of how your lives were after the cruises. It's good. Thank you.
Okay, guys, we'll see you.
Thank you, Brendan.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
And Mandy, good luck for your interview.
See you next week.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. This is Oscar from Ollie's Pocket with Oscar Tales. Mazatlan Tales. The Train Ride. One day, on leave from my ship, Sun Princess, I was home at my apartment in Mazatlan when I heard on the news that the airline staff of Mexicana and Aeromexico were going on strike, and there were no flights from Mazatlan to Mexico City for the foreseeable future. This was kind of unfortunate for me, as I was booked on a flight to Mexico City in a few days' time, and then a further flight on to Acapulco to rejoin the ship. I phoned Carlos, my apartment mate, who was at work at the travel agency, and asked him to get me on a flight before the strike started. He said, no chance, everything is booked and you will have to go by bus. Now I knew that the bus took 18 hours to Mexico City, and I did not fancy 18 hours on a crowded Mexican bus all that way. Then I got a brilliant idea. The ship would be in Mazatlan on the Tuesday, and I was sure the purser would find me a space to sleep for a few days in order for me to report for work on time on the next Saturday. After all, it was in his interest, and it was an emergency. On Tuesday, I went down to the docks with Carlos, and he went off to do the city tour as a guide, and I went on board to see the purser. At the purser's desk on A deck, I asked the young lady assistant purser for a meeting with the purser. She was a bit sniffy about a steward in jeans and t-shirt being at her desk, but after all, I was on leave. After a long wait, I was granted an interview with this Lord High official, who shall remain nameless, as he was never one of my favourite officers. Ushered into his august presence, I outlined the problem. I asked if I could join that day, and even offered to work free to Acapulco. Oh, no, most irregular. Won't do at all. Can't have that going on. Besides, there are no spare berths. Would not dream of it, Bradshaw, he said. Crestfallen that my brilliant idea had sunk without a trace, I turned to leave. Then he called me back. Hope forever beats eternal in the human breast, and I thought he had relented. Bradshaw, he said, however you get there, even if you have to walk, don't be late next Saturday morning, or I shall have to take great delight at reporting you absent without leave to the captain. Son of a... what a stinker he was, and he was actually enjoying a little joke. Later, having lunch with Carlos, I asked if he could get me on the passenger train that ran once a day to Guadalajara instead of going by bus. I could then stay one night in a hotel and go by bus to Mexico City, stay with friends overnight, and on to Acapulco the next day by another bus. Carlos seemed reluctant to book the train, but I insisted, and he duly went to his office and made a booking for Wednesday morning train at 6:30 a.m. You might wonder at my reluctance of going by bus. Mexican long-distance buses come in 3 classes. A first-class bus is very comfortable, had an air conditioning, toilets, and often had a hostess to serve coffee and juice. However, they were usually full in those days, unless you booked well in advance, which I could not. Second class were usually old, noisy, and belched smoke out of their exhaust systems, and were made by the Dina bus manufacturing company in Mexico City, and had Mexican air conditioning. That is, open the window. Third class were built on the chassis of trucks, and usually had bales of hay, luggage, and chickens at the back or on the roof. The second and third class both had frequent stops at restaurants for the use of toilets and to buy snacks. Next morning I was with Carlos at the railway station, and after a short wait a very smart train came into view. It had restaurant cars, sleeping cars, day cars, and looked splendid, and to my horror did not stop, but with a blast on its horn went through the station, disappeared out of view. Carlos appeared quite calm about it, and I very politely asked him through clenched teeth, why did it not stop? Oh, that's the American tourist train from the border to Guadalajara. You cannot book that one from Mazatlan. Then pray tell me when I might expect my train, I hissed. Oh, that could be any time. They're always late, if they get here at all, was his encouraging reply. It actually arrived about an hour late, and as it pulled into the station, I saw it was more actually like a train from the American Wild West movies. It was nothing like the earlier tourist train. It was packed with people, and they managed to find a seat. It was a hard, cracked leather seat that was most uncomfortable. Traders swarmed all over the train, and then with a blast on the horn, we slowly started moving out of the station. No sooner as we got speed, then on went the brakes, and we slowed down and stopped at the next village station. More traders swarmed over the train, selling everything from tamales and tortillas to birds in a cage. Not for consumption, I hasten to add, but as pets. Then a blast on the diesel horns train, and we pulled out, with traders jumping off the train as it gathered speed in a belching of diesel fumes that wafted in the open carriage windows and threatened to asphyxiate all the passengers before the next stop. It went on and on, hour after hour, village stop after village stop, with only a short distance and mileage gained in between each stop. 12.5 hours later we reached Guadalajara, and exhausted, stinking of diesel fumes, and soaked in sweat from the heat of the day, I disembarked the train. I went into a hotel and got a room, and had a long shower and a nap. I then phoned home, and Carlos answered. Carlos, why did you book me on that terrible train, I asked. I went on. It took 12.5 hours to reach Guadalajara, and the second-class bus only takes 8.5 hours. Quite calmly he replied, well, I wondered why you wanted to go by train. It was most strange. No local Mexican people in Mazatlan ever uses that train. It has such a bad reputation. I will draw a veil over the rest of the conversation as it got rather heated, as I wanted to know why he'd never told me that before I travelled. Next day, I had another good idea and went to the airport at Guadalajara and asked if there was a seat to Mexico City. They thought that was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. I had a right good old laugh. Just then the phone rang, and when the lady at the desk looked up again, she looked incredulous. Someone just cancelled a seat. If you run to gate 3 with your luggage, you can have it. I quickly paid and picked up my ticket and ran. As I got to the plane, I bumped into Petro Corsi, head of hotel services for Princess Cruises from Los Angeles office. "What are you doing, Oscar?" he said. So I gabbled out my tale and how I was going to some princess and was caught in the airline strike. "I am on my way to the ship as well," he said, "for an inspection after visiting our offices in Mexico City, so I will see you there." We boarded the flight, he to first class and myself to cattle class. At Mexico City I found my friends Terry Burgess and Gamaro Hiron, both of who used to work on Pacific Princess. They came and picked me up at the airport and took me to their apartment in the Tlatelolco district of Mexico City. After a night there, they took me next day in their car to the south of the city. Then I boarded a first-class bus at Terminal Central del Sur bus station to Acapulco, which took another 8.5 hours in those days. It actually takes only 6 hours today on the modern highway. Friday night I joined the rest of the relief crew at the hotel in Acapulco. Saturday morning I joined the ship in triumph and did not even smirk as I passed the purser in the lobby. Boy, was he surprised to see me. Now I don't know if Petro Corsi said something to him for sure. However, I suspect he might have. For after that little adventure of mine, he was always a much nicer purser to me. What he did not know was that although Petro Corsi was from Italy, his wife Elsie Corsi was from Mazatlan, and Petro was aware I also lived there. Also, 2 of his nephews were friends with myself and Carlos, and we used to drink together at Tambor El Patio restaurant and bar. Well, that's all, folks, for this week. From Oscar. Oh, and always remember,
Sana